For years, I worked 16-hour shifts on oil rigs, building a future brick by brick while my family drained me dry. To them, I was never a sister, just an endless well of emergency money. I never asked for thanks. I just kept giving, until the night of my brother's lavish engagement dinner. He gestured to a chair next to the restaurant's trash station and said, "Sit there. That's where you fit." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I walked out. And what I did next, silently, precisely, and without another cent, shattered the empire they had built on my back. This is not a revenge story. This is the story of a woman who finally said no and meant it. Most people assume I came from wealth, that I must have had some generous inheritance or married into a pile of money. They don't know I've spent the last 11 years in the oil fields of Alaska. I've missed every birthday, every Christmas, and every funeral since I turned 21. I work in temperatures that freeze eyelashes and crack bone. I've hauled steel in storms that would terrify most men. And you know what I got for all that? No debt. No roommates. No apologies. I bought my home outright. I drive a paid-off F-250 that doesn't blink in the snow. I eat clean, lift heavy, and rebuilt my garage into a gym that rivals commercial setups. Not because I want to show off, because the only thing I could ever control was what I built with my own two hands. But back home in the world I left behind, I'm still Riley the helper, the one who got lucky and owes it to the family. Let me paint the picture. My mom wears pearls like armor, shows up at charity galas in carefully curated outfits and name-drops designers she can't spell. She swears she went to finishing school, but she can't even finish her sentences without a martini. My dad flips foreclosed homes badly. His business has failed every year since 2013, but he still leases a BMW and wears loafers without socks like he's auditioning for a country club that wouldn't have him. And then there's my younger brother, Connor. CEO of nothing. Founder of imaginary ventures. Tech bro in a pool house he didn't pay for. 3 years ago, I put 22,000 into renovating that pool house because he said it was his startup space. Said it would be a temporary investment. The only thing it incubated was mildew and self-delusion. Connor calls me Riles when he wants something, and the brute when he doesn't. Our parents introduce him at church as our son, the entrepreneur, and I'm our daughter. Oh, she's in oil or something. Since 2016, I've kept a spreadsheet. 9,200 to my dad for back taxes. 11,600 to my mom for medical emergencies that included veneers and Botox. 26,500 to Connor across 9 different ventures. Not a penny returned. Not even a thank you card. I was an ATM with a pulse. They didn't even bother hiding it. But at the time, I let it happen. Because that's what family does, right? You pick up the slack. You give when they ask. You smile when they take. Until one day, they take too much. And everything, absolutely everything, starts to shift. It happened 3 days before Christmas. The rig had been holding through a vicious storm, ice thick on the scaffolding, wind howling like it was mourning something. I was on the lower deck, checking a tensioner that kept whining through the night. I knew the risk. I'd flagged it twice, but we were short-handed, and someone had to get it done. I remember the sound more than the pain. A metallic crack, like a gunshot. Then the screaming whip of a chain breaking loose and tearing through space. It caught me clean across the right shoulder and threw me into the steel guardrail like a rag doll. Then darkness. When I woke up, I couldn't move my arm, couldn't breathe. My collarbone was snapped in two. The ER doc said it looked like a combat injury. I was airlifted to Anchorage and told I'd need at least 6 weeks to recover. No lifting, no drilling, no pushing, and definitely no returning to the field. I went home alone. The cold in my bones couldn't match the silence from my phone. No missed calls from my parents. No texts from Connor. No, are you okay? Not even a damn emoji. I lay on my recliner, shoulder stapled shut, trying to scratch an itch on my back with my left hand and failing miserably. The pain meds made me dizzy. The stillness made me angry. Then one person showed up, Ivy. She wasn't family. She was one of the few other women on the rig, a trauma nurse turned drill operator. She drove 5 hours through snow, after a double shift, with nothing but a backpack and a thermos of soup. She helped me shower, changed my bandages, cleaned my kitchen without asking. I tried to tell her it wasn't necessary. Her exact words? "Shut up, Riley. This is what people do when they care." On the 3rd day, a card arrived. Baby blue, cartoon bear holding a balloon. Ivy opened it for me. Inside, in my mother's perfect script, "Hope you're healing. When you're better, can you check the garage door opener? It's acting up again. Also, we're behind on pool house utilities, about 340. Thanks." That was it. No love, no concern, no visit, just a bill. Ivy stared at the card, her fingers tightening. Then, without a word, she crumpled it and dropped it in the trash. That night, I heard her talking on the phone in the other room, her voice low, sharp. They don't even care. They're already asking her for more. She's injured and alone, and they just want the next check. The next morning, over breakfast, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "They don't love you, Riley. They love what you give them. There's a difference." And for the first time in my life, I didn't argue. I just nodded, because somewhere deep inside, I already knew. 2 months after my injury, while I was still learning how to tie my boots with one hand, I got a text from Mom. "Exciting news. Connor's engaged. We're hosting a private dinner at Skyline next Saturday to celebrate. 7 p.m. sharp. Cocktail attire. Be there." Okay. No, how are you healing? No, can you travel yet? Just a date, a time, and a dress code. I stared at the message like it was in a different language. Connor was getting married? I clicked on the group chat photo attached. There they were, Connor in a tailored navy coat, hair slicked back, smiling wide on a dock in Aspen, arm wrapped around a woman I'd never seen. She was picture perfect. Blonde waves, ivory coat, boots that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her name was Mallory Stanton, as in, that's Stanton, the luxury auto empire. Her family owned dealerships in 5 states, the kind of money that didn't get counted, just moved. And suddenly, Connor, jobless, overdrafted, king of fake startups, was now CEO of a rising tech venture, engaged to a woman who'd never seen the inside of a laundromat. He wasn't just marrying into money, he was constructing a fantasy with my reputation as the foundation. I didn't plan to go. I told Ivy I'd skip it, that I didn't need more proof of what they thought of me. But then Uncle Hank called. "Look," he said, "your mom asked if I could help cover the cost of the dinner, said you were probably tight on cash after your injury, and it was Connor's big night." "What do you mean, cover the cost?" I asked, blood already draining from my face. "They're expecting you to pay, Riley," he said. 4 to 5 grand from what she hinted. I hung up without another word. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, fingers hovering over my phone, staring at old spreadsheets full of transfers, Venmo receipts, and handwritten IOUs from Connor that meant nothing. Every time I said yes, every time I covered them, every time I swallowed hurt and called it loyalty. Maybe I needed to see it with my own eyes. Maybe I needed to sit in that room one last time to see just how far they'd pushed me. So I RSVP'd. The day of the dinner, I wore a black dress and a blazer that fit me like armor. I brought a bottle of champagne, 120, unopened, with a ribbon tied around the neck. I even got my nails done, not because they told me to, because I wanted to walk into that room with my head high, knowing this time, I was watching, documenting, recording everything. I didn't know yet how bad it would get. Didn't know what seat they'd saved for me. Didn't know that my breaking point had a metal frame and no tablecloth. But I was walking in with my eyes open. And for the first time, I wasn't walking in to help. I was walking in to witness. The Skyline restaurant sat atop a mirrored tower overlooking the entire city. The valet line looked like a luxury dealership. Bentleys, Teslas, 2 Ferraris. I rolled up in my F250, scrubbed clean, paid for in full. The valet blinked when I stepped out. Not that I cared. Inside, the air smelled of polished silver and truffle oil. A string quartet played something soft and expensive. A host greeted me with a tight smile and motioned to a private room on the east side. There, beneath chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows, stood a U-shaped arrangement of crystal glass tables. At the center, Mallory looked like royalty. And Connor, he looked like someone playing a role in a movie he didn't earn. I spotted my parents immediately. My mother was adjusting a flower centerpiece like it was the only thing that mattered. My dad was laughing too loudly at something a man in a suit said. I approached with a bottle of champagne in hand. Connor saw me first. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second, then returned, hollow and practiced. "Oh, hey, big sis," he said. "We, ran out of seats at the main table, but we've got a spot for you over there." He nodded toward the far side of the room. I turned to look. A small square service table. No tablecloth, no setting, just a metal folding chair and a plastic cup of water. Positioned 6 feet from the busing station, where servers scraped half-eaten lamb and sauce-soaked asparagus into industrial bins. The trash table. I looked back at the main table. Mallory avoided eye contact. My mom gave me that tight-lipped, please don't make a scene smile. My dad suddenly found his napkin fascinating. So I walked over, sat down, didn't say a word. Not because I accepted it, because I needed to know how far they'd go. And they did not disappoint. For the next 3 hours, I sat in silence, close enough to hear every joke, every toast, every mention of family legacy, while sauce splattered inches from my shoulder. Not one person offered me a plate. Not one person said, "Riley, come join us." Not even a roll. At some point, my phone buzzed. A text from Ivy. "How's the fancy dinner going?" I typed back one sentence. "They sat me next to the trash." She responded instantly. Get up, walk out. They don't respect you. Never have. Then came another text from Uncle Hank. How's the royal feast? I replied, I'm literally next to a garbage bin. His response? Take pictures. Trust me. So I did. One shot of my lonely chair, one of the glittering table across the room, one of the trash station behind me, still collecting the scraps of their 5-course celebration. Then the waiter came. Nervous, early 20s, probably working through college. He held a black folder. Ma'am, he said, clearing his throat, the final bill comes to $4,273. Would you like to handle that now? Or, I opened the folder, saw the numbers, then quietly closed it and placed it on the metal chair beside me. I stood up, and in a calm, even voice said, I'm not part of this group. Everything stopped. The room went still. My mom blinked. My dad froze mid-sip. Connor leaned forward, smirking like always. You're seriously doing this? Just pay. Like always. I met his eyes. No? One word. No shouting, no drama, no breakdown. Just no. And I walked away. Not fast, not angry. Just done. Connor's voice chased me as I reached the door. Wow, really? You're just walking out? I didn't turn around. I just said, I'm done picking up the tab. And for the first time in my life, I meant every word. I didn't answer their calls. Not that night, not the next day, not the 5 days after. My phone lit up with missed calls from Mom, a couple from Dad, and a dozen texts from Connor, ranging from sarcasm to desperation. I deleted them all unread, but I kept my ears open. Uncle Hank was my quiet informant. He sent me one line. I think your walkout started a fire. Then on day 6, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something made me pick up. Hi, is this Riley Carter? Yes. This is Mallory Stanton. Silence. She didn't sound tearful. She sounded corporate, controlled. The kind of calm that only comes after you've shut down the emotion and moved straight to litigation. I just have one question, she said. Did you invest 10-0 into Connor's company and act as a silent partner? No. Another pause. She exhaled slowly. Thank you for confirming. That's what I thought. Then, like she was reading from a press release, my father invested 185-0 into Connor's business, believing it was co-backed by you. Connor presented documents with your signature, your name, and listed you as an operational advisor. My father's legal team will be reaching out. She hung up. I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't throw anything. I just sat at my kitchen table, still in my hoodie, and felt something shift, something cold and clean. Connor hadn't just used me as an ATM. He'd used my name, my reputation, my word. The one thing I'd spent my life building brick by calloused brick, he'd forged into a weapon to lie to people with real money and real lawyers. That week, the floodgates opened. A former college friend of Connor's called, said he'd invested 65-0. A woman named Isabel, who briefly dated him, said she'd loaned 15-0 into his pre-seed round, trusting him because his sister backed it. A quiet engineer named Sam, another T30-0. All backed by the same fake paperwork. All carrying my signature. I asked them to send everything they had. Emails, PDFs, text screenshots, bank wires. I created a folder. Labeled it Connor, full collapse. Then, on Monday, I drove to the sheriff's department. I didn't bring a lawyer. I didn't wear makeup. I walked in wearing a flannel and boots, carrying a file the size of a phone book. When the detective asked what I needed, I said, my identity was used to commit financial fraud across multiple states. I have the documentation. He raised an eyebrow. I opened the folder. For the next hour, I laid it all out. No family drama, no sob story, just facts, transactions, timelines, signatures, and receipts. When I was done, the detective said, we'll be in touch. Expect a formal statement request soon. I nodded, got in my truck, drove home, and I didn't tell a single soul what I'd done, because by now I'd learned. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is stay silent. The papers were served 3 days later. Connor's world began to crumble in slow, silent pieces. I didn't have to lift a finger. But on the 4th day, I got a text from Mom. Can you come by the house, please? We need to talk. This is getting out of hand. She didn't ask what had happened. Didn't ask why Connor was being investigated. Just fix it. I didn't answer. But I showed up that Sunday. I knew they'd all be there. Their house looked the same. White pillars, manicured lawn, fake elegance holding on by a thread. Dad's leased BMW sat in the driveway, next to Mom's spotless Lexus. Both of them bought with borrowed time. I let myself in. No knock. Family house, remember? They were in the living room, silent, waiting. Dad in his golf clothes, even though it was 40 degrees outside. Mom in pearls and a cashmere cardigan like she was hosting tea. Connor pacing the rug in sweatpants, phone in hand, eyes bloodshot. The tension was so thick it felt like a courtroom. "Riley," Mom said, standing. "Thank God. We need to talk about all this mess." I didn't respond. Just walked over to the coffee table, placed a thick manila folder on the glass, and sat down. "What's that?" Dad asked. "Everything I turned into the sheriff's department," I said. "Connor committed fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, cross-state investment fraud. It's all in there. Every forged document, every text message, every fake claim with my name on it." The silence was instant. Even Connor stopped moving. Then it exploded. "You're trying to destroy me," he shouted. "You've always hated me. You couldn't stand that I was finally building something. You think you're better than everyone else because you swing a wrench for a living?" I didn't flinch, just looked at him. "You forged my name, used my reputation to steal money. You built a castle out of my blood and expected me to hold the damn gate open." He pointed at the folder like it was radioactive. "You could have just backed me, signed on. Everyone would have made money. But no, you had to play saint, had to play righteous, Riley." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Mom jumped in, voice trembling but polished. "There has to be a way out of this. You could make a statement, say you verbally agreed, that there was a misunderstanding, that you approved the business in principle." I turned to her slowly, and for the first time in my life, really saw her. The performance, the calculation, the refusal to look at consequences, only optics, always optics. "You want me to lie to save him," I said flatly. She looked down. "For the family, Riley. We're still your family." I shook my head. "No, you were never a family, you were a company, and I was the investor." Dad's voice finally cut in, sharp and desperate. "You'd really let your brother go to prison?" "No," I said, standing. "He got himself there. I'm just not bailing him out." I reached for the door. Connor's voice cracked behind me. "You're dead to me." I paused, just long enough to breathe it in. "You've been dead to me since the card with the cartoon bear." Then I walked out. No guilt, no second thoughts. Just the clean, hard weight of truth finally spoken out loud. 6 weeks passed. I poured myself back into work, rehabbed my shoulder, flew out for a consulting job in Montana, spent weekends in silence with Ivy in the mountains. We didn't talk about my family. And then, one Tuesday morning, Uncle Hank called. "No, hello. Just this. Connor ran one more scam. From county lockup." I closed my eyes. "What did he do?" "He convinced your parents there was a fixer," Hank said. "Some lawyer with connections. Said if they paid enough, he could make the charges go away." I felt the nausea creep in. "How much?" "About 120,000. Silence. "They took out a second mortgage, drained their retirement, borrowed from friends, all wired to an offshore account Connor set up months ago." "Of course he did. There was no fixer, no deal. Just enough of a restitution payment to Mallory's father to delay extra charges, and the rest, gone." My parents were now in freefall. Their home, the White Column Delusion, was weeks from foreclosure. The country club revoked Dad's membership after his BMW was repossessed in front of the clubhouse. Mom was lying low, too ashamed to show up at her charity events. "They're going to come to you," Hank said. "Thought you should know." And they did. Saturday morning, 9:00 a.m. sharp. Doorbell rang. Ivy was heading to the gym and squeezed my shoulder gently as she passed. I opened the door. There they stood, my mother and father. Weathered. Smaller somehow. The pretense stripped away like old wallpaper. They didn't speak right away. Then Dad cleared his throat. "We're losing the house." He looked like he'd aged 10 years. His voice no longer sharp, just tired. "We made mistakes," Mom added, barely holding back tears. "We believed in him, and now we have nothing." She reached forward. "We're still your family, Riley." That word again. I said nothing, just walked over to the coffee table, pulled open the drawer, and slid a thick envelope across the glass. "Open it." Mom hesitated, then peeled it open. Inside, mortgage documents, title transfer forms, lease paperwork. Her hands trembled. "What is this?" "I bought the mortgage," I said simply. "The house is mine now, through an LLC, at a 40% distress discount. You have 30 days to vacate, or sign that lease." They froze. "Lease?" Dad asked. 12 months. 900 a month. That's less than half market rate. You pay it on time. You keep the place. At the end of the year, if you've held a job and saved enough, I'll sell it back to you for what I paid." Mom's face fell. "You expect us to get jobs?" I shrugged. "McDonald's is hiring. So is Target. Amazon pays $17 an hour with benefits. You'll be fine." She sat in stunned silence. "But Dad," he nodded. "Where's Connor in all this?" he asked quietly. "Not on the lease," I said. "He sets foot on that property, you're in breach, and I evict you." The room went cold. Mom stared down at the papers. Then, with trembling hands, signed, Dad followed. No tears, no arguments, just quiet defeat. As they stood to leave, Dad looked back at me. Why help us at all? I met his eyes. I'm not helping you. I'm breaking the cycle. The first month, Mom texted me photos like she was documenting a war. Dad in a red apron at Home Depot. Her behind a Target service counter, eyes wide with forced martyrdom. Each message came with a passive-aggressive caption. Can you believe we're doing this at our age? Hope you're happy. I didn't respond. Not with words. But my property manager confirmed. Rent paid. On time. Every time. By month 3, the martyrdom faded. Dad mentioned in passing that he liked the structure of his job, that it felt good to finish something real at the end of a shift. Mom took longer. But eventually, she stopped sending pictures and started forwarding coupons and meal prep tips. She even joked about learning Excel for her office admin gig at a small dental clinic. No more pearls. No more pretending. They were living. 12 months passed. I renewed their lease, same terms. They didn't ask for a discount, and I didn't offer one. By then, Dad had been promoted to department manager. Mom had moved to a better-paying role at a small insurance firm. They had savings for the first time in 20 years. They still called occasionally, carefully, respectfully. The door wasn't locked anymore, but the ATM was permanently closed. Connor served 14 months in minimum security. He tried to write me once. I didn't open the envelope. He doesn't exist in my world anymore. One day, Ivy asked me if I regretted helping my parents. I thought for a long moment before answering. No, I said, because I didn't do it for them. Then who? She asked. For me. So I could finally stop being their collateral. So I could look at myself and know I drew the line. I stood at the edge of a quiet victory. Not revenge, not satisfaction. Peace. Not a word people associate with stories like mine. But there it was, settling into my chest like sunlight on still water. Ivy and I started building a life. One without fire drills. Without surprise calls. Without guilt wrapped in false gratitude. We planted a tree in the backyard. She called it the new root. And sometimes, when the wind hits just right, I think about that night at the restaurant. The metal chair, the garbage bin, the look on my mother's face as I walked out, and I smile, because I left the table, but I took back my name. As someone who gave everything to my family, my time, my money, my silence, I learned that love without respect is just dependence. Many of us, especially as we get older, believe that holding a family together means sacrificing our boundaries. We stay quiet to keep the peace. We give, hoping one day they'll give back. But the truth is, you can't keep giving from an empty well. I was raised to believe that loyalty meant always saying yes, that being the strong one meant carrying everyone. But strength is also knowing when to stop, when to say, enough. Enough. For those of you who have spent your lives being the responsible one, let this story be a quiet permission. It's not too late to draw new lines, to let people face consequences, to reclaim the version of yourself that isn't always cleaning up after others. Because family isn't who drains you. Family is who respects you. If this story resonates with you or reminds you of someone you know, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your experience. And don't forget to subscribe for more true, powerful stories that speak to the heart.